I'm not a big fan of lgbtq. I mean, I think they're garnering a lot of attention that is unwarranted. I mean, they're 1% of the population. So why are we reaching out and doing all this for 1% of the population?
I guess because it's 1% of the population.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a big fan of LGBTQ. Great, I'm not a big fan of people that wear longhorns on their shirts, but I still think you should have equal rights. I'm not a big fan of people that wear MAGA hats on top of straw cowboy hats. It's a ridiculous look and you look very stupid, but I still think you should be treated equally under the law and celebrated as somebody who is respected in society. But he is right, it's just 1% of the population. Why should you care for 1 out of every 100 people? Except LGBTQ community is about 5.5% of the U.S. population, which is 5.5 times more than 1%. And again, the numbers don't matter. And again, do you see how the guy thought Michael Schur was agreeing with him until he realized that he was actually making a point that disproved his very callous, strange, heartless, discriminatory beliefs, and then realized he had nothing to say? Michael Schur had more to say.
I guess because it's 1% of the population.
Yeah.
I mean, so like if my brother was born gay, I would want him to have all the rights.
I mean, I've got no problem if you're gay and you want to wear a dress or whatever. That's your business, but it doesn't need to be everybody else's business.
Isn't this nice? This man has no problem if you're gay and like to wear a dress. He also doesn't know what being gay is, because most gay people are gay, meaning that affects their sexual orientation, who they're attracted to. Doesn't mean they like to wear dresses. This person is actively speaking against something he doesn't even understand. And I'm just continually mind-boggled by the lack of empathy from conservatives in this country, obviously pushed on by leaders who manipulate people's lack of understanding and lack of empathy to make them further and further from caring about their fellow human beings. And this mindset not only affects the way they treat other people and speak out publicly about other people, but it also leads them to completely disregard the rule of law that they pretend to care so much about. Like, look at this clip from The Good Liars.
Yeah, I work construction, yeah.
Does it bother you that Trump famously didn't pay a lot of his construction employees?
Who?
In Atlantic City, a lot of the people who worked on his casinos, people lost their livelihoods.
Says who?
The people.
It's just known people.
It is a known thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I'm sure they deserved it.
You're sure they deserved it. You're sure the people that worked for Donald Trump, the man you're holding a sign for and have an American flag colored construction hat for, deserve to not be paid for the construction work that they did? Yeah. I'm sure they did something terrible to Donald Trump, and that's why he fairly decided not to pay him. Not possibly the possibility that he's a con man and a liar and a cheat who always will try to not pay people and get out of his responsibilities and do whatever he can to make a dollar on somebody else's hard work without fairly compensating them. Couldn't possibly be that. If he didn't pay, it's clearly the working man who is at fault for it. It's clearly the you, sir, who is at fault for it. It's very wild. And who cares about facts or morality when you can lick the boots of a man named Donald Trump who doesn't even wear boots like Ron DeSantis? He wears regular shoes. This is the current modern day Republican base. They don't need their elected officials to actually do anything for them. They just need them to be mean to other people. And that suits them just fine. These are the kind of people we're dealing with here. People would rather see everybody else affected, everybody else miserable, than actually make change. And having a voting base made up of those kinds of people enables like Stephen Miller and his agenda to thrive.
New reporting from Axios says that Miller has a new mission should Mr. Trump win re-election. Miller wants to dramatically change how the Department of Justice looks at the issue of race, dismantling civil rights era laws to turn the focus on what Miller and his allies call anti-white racism.
Where do you start with something like that? With a clip like that? The obsession conservatives have with being the victim is so on display. It's so obvious with what Stephen Miller wants to do in a second Trump term. And don't get it twisted. A lot of you plans on doing, if Trump gets back on office, is just out of spite. It's out of his twisted, racist, backwards view of the world, where he is very sick of people gaining rights in this country, getting closer towards having equal rights and equal treatment under the law, and he wants to undo it. And that's what he considers anti-white racism. People who aren't white being treated more like white people, aka fairly, in this nation. He has a big problem with that. Do you have a problem with that? I don't, but it's hard to know anymore who has what problem with what, because everything seems up in the air. But here's a little more.
In response to your reporting, Trump's campaign said, quote, as President Trump has said, all staff, offices, and initiatives connected to Biden's un-American policy will be immediately terminated. How expansive would this overhaul be? In some cases have now established basic civil rights.
Oh, it could be incredible. And this is not just DEI offices or HR trainings. Like, what we're talking about is almost any federal government program that is meant to help minorities, people of color, even just women, access federal funds in a way that they haven't historically been able to. Those could be completely canceled.
Miller essentially wants to, in a second Trump term, rip the fabric out of our society. How we look at right and wrong, what's up, what's down. He wants to change even what can be taught in schools. That's how evil Stephen Miller is. For many conservatives, they are the way that they are. I don't think because they have an evil nature of any kind. I think they've just been lied to for so many years by right-wing media and politicians. They're not inherently bad people. They're just a product of a system that has taken advantage of them for a very long time. But the leaders of these movements, the people like Stephen Miller, well, it's quite clear. They're intelligent, they're shrewd, and they're racist. They don't want people to be equal. They don't want to give up an advantage they may have in society so they can keep whatever modicum of leg up that they have, because they're deep down afraid that if they had to compete against all people, they would lose. But guess what? You don't get to do that in society. You don't get to keep other groups of people down to keep an advantage for yourself. You have to be good enough to win anyway, to win fair and square. And if you're not good enough to do that, if you're not moral enough to do that, not only do you not get to dictate the terms of our society, but you get to be looked down upon by society, and you're the only group that should be kept down by society. Because once again, anyone who breaks the golden rule and does unto others as they would not want done unto themselves need to be stopped, because they make society worse for all of us. That's the one group of people that should not get equal rights, those who want to take them away from other people. Is that explanatory enough? Is that obvious enough? Or do you need more examples? Well, I'm not going to give you any more examples. Look into your own heart. Conservatives watching this, look into your own soul. Dig a little empathy out and see if perhaps you can unwire some of what you've been taught. Does this resonate with you at all? Do any chords get struck by realizing that it's quite obvious upon any sort of detailed look that there is no racism against white people? There's just white people being called out for a lot of their racism these days. And it takes a humble, open, smart, evolved person to be able to admit a mistake, to be able to say, I might have done that wrong, we might have done that wrong, but we're willing to change for the betterment of society, and we'll still be okay. And if you can't do that, ask yourself why. Ask yourself why you can't look inward, why you can't help do what's right, correct a broken system, correct a corrupt system, and try to make the playing field equal so that all human beings have a fair shot at success. I know it sounds crazy, but maybe try it. It might feel good. It might feel good to not keep other people down, even though I get it. You don't want to be that way. You were taught that way, but break those shackles. See what you can do to be a better person. You won't regret it. I'm Ben Glebe for Rebel HQ. You can follow me at Ben Glebe on Instagram.